My name is Natalie Fritz, and I am the archivist and outreach director for the Clark County Historical Society. And uh, I've been doing these virtual programs for 4 years now.
Mhm.
So we like to do sometimes we have special guests, and it doesn't have to be me talking the whole time. And I like those kinds of programs. So if anybody has any other ideas for programs we can do like that, I'm happy to hear it. But a lot of the times I'm highlighting stuff uh, in our archives, things that we have a lot of, stuff we have a lot of information about. And today our topic is the history of Springfield and Clark County drugstores and pharmacies. And I know there have been a lot, there are still a lot. So I'm not going to try and cover all of it. I focused on what we specifically have in our collections. So if you know we're missing any, mention it here. Let me know where they were, where they are. But that means they might not have been represented in our collection, or they might not have been labeled correctly. I didn't realize they were a drugstore or a pharmacy. So this is just going to kind of share some of the stuff from the collections, talk a little bit about local history, how some of them got started, as far as what we know. There's some, especially some of the ones represented in the pictures here. I haven't actually done further research into them yet. I know we have the picture. It'll probably something that I'll dive deeper into in the future, to be able to write a caption for the paper or do more information to share on Facebook or something like that. So there are still ones out there that I know we've got great pictures, but I haven't really gotten to tell the story yet. So if you guys here can help share anything, knowledge you have of any of these, I'm happy to hear that. But this is a virtual program, and as with all of our virtual programs, we record them. So for better or worse, they are available later on YouTube and on our Facebook page. So people can go back and see about different local history topics, and see all the pictures. And what I like about YouTube is that it captions it, never picks up the words correctly because it doesn't understand all of our local stuff. But that's where you can find stuff after that. These are kind of laid back kinds of programs. So we encourage people to share or jump in or add more information. If you want to go in the chat, you can put stuff in the chat. I'll pay attention to that as well to ask questions or clarify things. So I'm going to get started with one of our earliest drugstores that we have information about. This is a picture of it in its iteration as the city drugstore, but we know that there was various iterations of the Koblenz family and Jacobs family that were running those drugstores as well. So we know the story behind this is we came in through the Theodore Troop side. He was in the pharmaceutical business in Springfield for over 60 years. And he remained in the same location at the southeast corner of Main and Fountain for his whole career. He came to Springfield about 1867 to work with his uncle Isaac Koblenz, and we know a little bit more about the Koblenz pharmacy because we got a research request last year that was connected to the Koblenz side, and they knew that they had a pharmacy, and that's when we realized it was much earlier than Troop getting involved with it. So he got involved, and it later became City Drug, and it became Troop Company in 1910. So this is a pre-1910 photo that we have here showing it as City Drug Store. We know that same store at that corner became Gallagher's around 1928 after Troop died in 1926. Troop was the first president of the Commercial Club, which is today our Chamber of Commerce, and he was the director of the First National Bank. And also the last survivor of the Champion City Guards, which was organized in the 1870s here in Springfield. His daughter, Olive, married Harry Kissel. So she was Olive Troop. And Harry Kissel was a prominent realtor and developer who started Ridgewood. So this is a really wonderful street view here. And if you're familiar with the corner that this is now where the fountains stand at Fountain and Main. So the fountains would run along this side of the building, and this would be going down towards Fountain, south side. So this is the east side of the street going down Fountain. And then we've got another great picture a little bit later. We've got cars in this one, but you can see it's still Troop Drugstore with cut prices says on the sign here. And this whole block, you know, is gone. A lot of these buildings were part of the later core block demolition in the 70s, but some of these buildings were gone even before that, that are in this view here. This is another neat view, going back way earlier, before cars, of that corner there. And we're coming up on a very sad anniversary, the 1904 riots that occurred downtown. That was the result of a black man, Richard Dixon, who killed a police officer, and he was taken to the jail, where they tried to protect him from the mob that eventually dragged him out and killed him, beat him, and hung him from this telephone pole here, which would be that corner now where the James DeMint statue stands, about where the fountains are. So I know that's something that there have been different people that have been trying to get some historical markers in the downtown to talk more about that event and all of the turmoil that came about in the city at that time. And it's made me wonder, when they put in that application, where are they going to place the marker? Because that would be the exact location on that corner there where we already have the DeMint statue and plaque there. So that'll be interesting to see, and hopefully it's something that, you know, can be talked about and looked at in the future. But that is on that part of town right there. We have a lot more information about the drugstore throughout, just buried in little bits and pieces throughout the archives. We have this really wonderful resource that we think is from about 1908, based on the different businessmen that are in there. It's called, what is it called? Springfield Men of Affairs is the title of the book, and it has all of these wonderful caricatures of people, all men, that were in business around the turn of the century. And we've looked up a lot of the people in there and figured out that it had to have been about 1908 based on who's in there. But it has a caricature of Troop in there. And this is from a scrapbook that we have in the collection that has a little clipping that showed another view of the store that we had never seen before. So I wanted to include this one as well. We know that the pharmacists would have had some of them had their own recipes that they would have used. We have a ledger in the collection that includes handwritten recipes. This is for a digestion elixir up here, and a rheumatic elixir down on this side. And then this one is a Titlow liniment, which is, we believe, must have been a recipe of Dr. Vanetta Titlow, who was, she was born in Pennsylvania in 1868, and she went to the Women's Medical College of Philadelphia in 1891. And after her graduation, she came to Springfield about 1892 and became one of the first female physicians in the area. She was pivotal in organizing this baby health camp that started around 1914. It was located right below the current standpipe. So if you've seen pictures of the old standpipe on East Main Street, it's that hill there where the park and the standpipe are. There was a baby health camp there because it was common knowledge that fresh outdoor air was great for baby health. So we've got these wonderful pictures of we called him this one here, and a little baby cage is how we have this one labeled in our archival photo. But a little kind of bassinet and a little cute little baby in a basket. And we've got this very stern looking Vanetta Titlow, who was also the doctor for the Westcott family. She delivered John Westcott, I believe. So this is another very, very early pharmacy that we have information about. It spent over 100 years in the same location. The founder was Adam Schmidt, who came to Springfield from Germany in 1861, and he started out at the Eagle Drug Store. So you can see this one here is Eagle Drug, which was located at 39 East Main. And one of the things that makes research very difficult around the turn of the century is that they changed all of the street numbers and a lot of the street names in between 1908 and 1909. So we know that 39 West Main is now 63. So that when you're doing research, you have to figure out what the address changed to. And I can tell you that there's no rhyme or reason. We would have thought, maybe add 5, add 100. It's always seems to be pretty random how they figure out those new numbers. So Schmidt started at Eagle Drug in 1871, or took over in 1871, and then he began remodeling the location. Purchased the building himself in 1914 and put on a new storefront, which is what, if people remember that building, it probably looked like that from about 1914 onwards. He worked there himself for 61 years until his death in 1932. There's an article in 1926 that talks about how his business had the record for the longest time in the same location. At that time, it had been around for 55 years, and it was believed then to be the oldest drugstore in the city in 1926. Then he was 84 years old and still working daily, even after his son had taken over the management. His son, Albert Schmidt, ran the store for many years and gave it to his employees upon his retirement. Of the employees that were given ownership, some of them went on to run their own drugstores in the city, and we'll talk about some of them later. The employees that he gave it to were George Dietrich, Don Adams, who managed Schmidt's for a number of years, Russ Williman, Dick Morningstar, Al Powell, Jim Potziavos, who we'll talk more about later, Carl Jones, and Hugo Randolph. That we know from stories that it was an unofficial bank for employees of the local factories around there. They could come cash their checks for a fee and be issued tokens that could be used in the store. And we actually have a large token collection that was for different stores in the area. And we have some of the Schmidt's tokens there. Barbara made note that the U.S. Postal Service was probably responsible for those changes in street numbers and names in the early 1900s, because this happened in many U.S. cities. So thanks to U.S. Postal Service for making it very confusing for people many years later to find out what things were. We've got some more pictures of Schmidt's throughout the years. This one comes from, one of the only storefront pictures I could find that comes from our Houston Moores collection. I think this is from about the 30s to 40s, this one here. And this was something that a lot of stores commonly would give out little booklets or pamphlets or like kind of advice kind of things for life or for healthcare or different things. But this is the Little Visitor, and it's from 1906. And it's giving you tips for, talks about taking fresh air for a baby in sunshine in the summertime, different spring and summer fashions. You could buy your corn cure for your corns at Schmidt's. It was also a store where you could get all your rubber goods. And then there was some of the other things like bed pans, ice bags, rubber goods for the sick room. You could stock your house for this season where everybody seems to be getting sick right now. And then this one had the home remedies for the cough, for indigestion. There's some humor in there, all sorts of different stuff. So these were little magazines that they would have given out. And we've run across them over the years. So we know that a lot of the different pharmacies, this was kind of one of the things that they were giving out. We have this really cool book of the biographies of the presidents, that each president has one short little sentence and sometimes an illustration. And we found it really funny how they described a lot of the presidents, but it was being given out by a local pharmacy. I forgot to find and scan that one for today. This was another thing that they were giving out at Schmidt's. They had little almanac booklets that they were giving out. So this was back when they were still at 39 before it became 63. And this is when I was doing research on the something that I wrote about earlier this year on Facebook. I went through newspapers.com, which is my absolute favorite resource for doing research nowadays. and found all of the different ads that they had for Schmidt's throughout the year. So you see when they had rubber goods, you could get your own spices to make ketchup. Later they had you could get your prescription wheelchairs there, and that was when they were at Northridge. So this is much later, one of their locations. They had delivery, so they could deliver your drugs to you anywhere in town at no extra charge. There's a great ad for wine of cod liver oil, best tonic for old people. Sounds delicious. That you could get postcards and photo albums there. You could get your cameras and photo supplies and all sorts of different patent medicines, which we have a lot of evidence of in our collections. Some of them in bottles that still seem to have scary fluids in them. So I've got a picture of some of those later. This was one that was shared after there had been several stories about Schmidt's in the paper. Somebody had run to their bathroom to find an old tube of sunburn ointment that they had gotten from Schmidt's that could be applied on your sunburns, and that was shared in the paper afterwards. This is one that we have in our collection, a little pill box, literally little box for the pills. And it has the address on there, and it has the instructions are handwritten. So this looks like it's from 1927. 1 tablet every hour until pain is eased, then as needed every 3 to 4 hours. And it's a little hinged box. And you can see these are our accession numbers on here. So we know that whoever donated this donated in 2010. So it's got our little number on the box there. And just for fun, I threw in some other pill boxes. This is a pill box from World War II. This would have been an armament. I think these are from maybe around Normandy. This is the what was being used, I think is where I pulled these pictures from. And then pillbox hats are the other more common usage for that pillbox here. The reason that I started doing all the research on Schmidt's was at the beginning of the year, right at the end of last year. George Willeman, who is he's with the Library of Congress with the nitrate film vault. He came in at the end of the year, and his uncle had been a longtime pharmacist at Schmidt's Drugs, and he had received this award from was it from Pfizer and Lilly, and received this in 1974 for filling his 2 millionth prescription with this little tchotchke that he kept. He said his mother had kept in her house, so he brought it to us, and we found some of the articles. This is the article from when he received for his 2 millionth prescription, but just a few years before that, they had gotten a plaque at Schmidt's for filling 1 million prescriptions. And then since I was doing the research, we followed it all the way through to the end. Schmidt's Drugs was sold to Brown's Drugs later, and then which was further up on East Main Street, up at the corner of, I don't know, you guys will have to remind me which corner 44 is on. But they sold the building, and then it was demolished shortly after to make way for Home City Bank. Which then we went on to find the picture of that being built. And then this was our side-by-side showing that it's now Richwood Bank on that location at 63 West Main, was built there, and that opened in the 70s. So this is our, get to the next slide. Sorry, it's not going. There we go. This is our first of our trade cards that I wanted to share with you. Sometimes, so the trade cards were they were started in the mid 1700s, and they became really popular towards the late 1800s. So a lot of the trade cards we have are from that time period, and sometimes they're the only representation we have of a business that exists. We don't have photos of them. We don't have too much other information from them. We have trade cards to show that they existed. But we do happen to have a Troop drugstore one. This was for a for Jane's Tonic, which was a medicine for children, worm medicine for children. So that was something that was being sold at Troop. Notice that there's no E, but these trade cards might be printed in bulk, and they would have space on them for them to either, stamp their information or have their information printed. So Tyler today in the archives was nice enough to go make copies of the list that I gave him of all the ones we had in our collection that were drugstore related, because I had wanted to add those in, and I realized I had not had time yet. So he went and found all the ones that we had that were trade cards. So the next few slides are some of the trade cards we have. There can come in varying sizes. Some of them are about 2 by 3, so just about the size of a business card. Some of them are like 3 by 5. So we have a really large collection of trade cards. One in our John Bartley collection. He's a local collector who gave a lot of stuff from the Springfield area. And then we have just another 2 or 3 shoe boxes that are just full of, because they're none of them are bigger than like than 3.5 by 5, so they all fit in there. So we have several hundred of them representing all sorts of local businesses. So they would always have a pretty picture on the front, and then on the back they would have information about whatever they were selling. So this would have been printed more by the Lydia Pinkham's company. This was part of their advertising. They would give it to the local pharmacists, who could then this one here, they just have their information stamped on there. So this is 80 at probably Adam Bacchus and Company at 23 East Main Street. So as far as I could tell, this was the only information we had about that particular company, evidenced by the trade card. We don't have any other. So we could probably trace their history a little bit more through the directories, but we don't have any other visual representation of them existing. But we know that towards the late 19th century, they started doing more sophisticated designs in color printing. So that's when you we have some earlier ones that are just black and white, but we've got these beautiful ones from later. Here's some ones for Persian balm. This just says on this side, sold by all druggists. So druggists, so you would flip it over to see which one that's in particular that's advertising. This was G.F. Burton, which was at the same St. James Hotel corner, which is the Shawnee Hotel corner now, where that is. And this one is for J.J. Brown, which was on Limestone. It says, do you have a headache? If so, use Dr. Little's Headache Specific. It was a powder that you could put on your tongue to cure your headache. And then another one that they had from that same J.J. Brown druggist was a little puzzle card where you could try and find like a highlights magazine. You could try and find, the hidden giraffe, or the elephant, or different animals throughout the picture. So this is a neat little one, which we've used before to show old games and things like this. So this was a fun one that we pulled out before for something else. And then here's a whole other series of ones that were by that J.J. Brown druggist, all different ones they had. So this is Pond's, which is still around today. Horsford's acid phosphate for mental and physical exhaustion and dyspepsia. These are some of the things, if you go through the old causes of death or illness, you see all of these illness names that they're treating there. Lydia Pinkham's was a very popular one. I think we have a couple of different bottles of that in the collections. Like this one for rat poison. It was called Rough on Rats, ROR, that you could purchase at the pharmacy. And then these are the backs of each of those cards that give you a little bit more information about what you're buying and where you can buy it. These are a couple more from the Springfield Men of Affairs booklet. These are ones I haven't done any more digging into to find more information about the history of them, but we know that it's probably about 1908. So I would probably start in the 1908 directory to find out, when Charles Westenfelter was the proprietor of West East Pharmacy, and kind of find a little bit more about that history, because in this case, these pictures here are the only evidence we have of those businesses existing. We don't have trade cards, we don't have pictures, but we know that they for pharmacists because they appear in that caricature book. A couple more. We've got George Lynch, who was the manager of the herb medicine company, which made lightning hot drops, which I looked those up online, and they were only made in Dayton and Springfield, but they were all over the country, and they sound terrifying, the ingredients in them. And that we definitely have, I think, an empty bottle of those in a couple empty bottles of those in our collection. There was an arcade drugstore that was Charles Buchholz was the proprietor of that. So these are, if we ever wanted to do a little more research, we know that these are a couple more people we could look further into. This is a great picture that comes from the Clark County Pharmaceutical Association 1950 Health Fair, which was held at Memorial Hall. So this was a little setup that they had for a fake pharmacy that you could see what kind of things you could get at a pharmacy. And in the background, they had an olden days pharmacy that was set up, so they had people in costume to show what pharmacies used to look like. So they had brought out probably all the stuff that they still had and used in their own places to do this setup here. This is another longtime pharmacy here, Fire Oaked and McCann, which was located on West High Street. The building is still there. George McCann was a second generation owner, took it over from his father. I don't know if George McCann was we knew him as he was a political memorabilia collector. He had a enormous political buttons collection that was donated to us, and he also used to give talks on train history and different things like that. But he also gave us a very large collection from the Clark County Pharmaceutical Association that talks a bit about their history. And we have here he is in 1940 at the pharmacy. He passed away about I can't remember, within the last 10 years, but very nice man. And we've got just general information about the different pharmacies and pharmacists in town, and is part of that pharmaceutical collection that he had donated. This is that Brown Drugs that was at, let's see, what's that in the background there? Can anyone place the exact corner that we're at here, or do you guys remember exactly where Brown Drugs was?
Looks like it's the corner of Main and Limestone.
Okay, so this is about where, is this where Park Bank is now?
No, this is where
Wait, Main.
West Bank is.
Wrong block. Yeah, up a block. Okay, so this is Limestone here then, going this direction. Okay, right. I see it. I see that now. Okay. So yeah, this is that bank, the bank parking lot where we have our mural now of Hattie Mosley. Okay.
No, yeah. Is it sort of more or less across the street from the Shawnee?
Yes. And then another one, we've got some, well, we didn't, I found this picture online from the Springfield, Ohio history page because I couldn't find any pictures of this drugstore, but Hebel Drugs was way down on East High Street. I believe the building still stands, but we had this tax stamp dispenser thing that they could, you know, I had to look up how this worked because I didn't understand how the tax stamps worked, but to manually apply tax to items, you had your tax stamps when they first started taxing retail items. And we were donated this the tax stamp dispenser booklet that we know had been used at the pharmacy. So I was like, oh, that's a pharmacy. I didn't know anything out before that. So we found a little bit more information about the pharmacy online and about the sales tax being applied. And this was a letter sent by our Trades and Labor Assembly Union locally that was opposing that sales tax, talking about how much that would hurt business if they were to have a sales tax passed. This is a Full Commerce Pharmacy, I think, which was at Fountain in Maine. So that's one that I haven't done additional research on to find out more specific information about where that was located. This is Gallagher's. This is showing it opening its new location in 1963 at High and Limestone. So this would be the bottom.
Across from Woolworths.
Okay. So is this where Walgreens was later then? Or after Walgreens?
I think so.
Would have been after Walgreens then, because Walgreens would have been in that. So this is the McAdams building. Yeah. Now being called the Renz building. This one here is oh, I don't remember what this one is. Oh, this is Ludlow Pharmacy. So this was on Main Street, and this is the interior of it. And then this is Morrow's drugstore, which was at High and Limestone, which was later Dow Drugs. So this would have been where Park Bank is now. So across from High and Limestone. So this picture here is from the 1920s, and John Morrow first opened the drugstore in 1905 in what was called the Kelly Building at High and Limestone. At its peak in the 1920s, there was 13 different Morrow drugstore locations around the city. Many of them were open all day and night. And around 1928, it became Dow's Drugs. And then when Woolworths opened in 1939 across the street, Dow Drugs moved. No, wait. So it was where Woolworths was. It moved across the street and then later became one of the locations of Gallagher's, which also had several locations. This one here is I think this one is, oh, I can't read my own, I can't read my own notes on this one. It's on East Main. I have it, I think I have the name on one of the last slides, but this would be an early 1900s one. You can see all the bottles stacked along all around the side there. This is a picture of Dow's Drugs. So this would have been when it was across the street of from Woolworths. Actually, I think this picture is cars, it looks like, because Woolworths was 39. So this is one I'd have to do a bit more research to try and figure out the date on this one. This is the Walgreens location. And we have this Walgreens menu here, but I don't think that this was actually from Walgreens here in Springfield, or at least at that location. We know that they may have had a luncheon or lunch counter like they had at Woolworths, but we looked closer at this one and it said today's luncheon is Friday, August 30th, 1940 at 1140 Euclid Avenue, which is definitely not downtown. So we realized this can't be in Springfield. So our current Walgreens on Limestone is actually at 1140, which just happens to be a coincidence. We thought maybe this was an address in Dayton, but we went through their directories and there wasn't anything there. So we thought maybe Euclid Avenue in Cleveland. We couldn't find anything there either. So we're pretty sure that this wasn't Springfield, but we're wondering if anybody remembers if they did have a lunch counter at the Walgreens here in Springfield. Mm-hmm. It's not clear if it was, but we know that Walgreens did have lunch counters. We just don't know. I don't think ours in town may have had one. So this menu that we got that we thought was being donated for a local one, I don't think was for one that was here locally. But we know that Walgreens was founded in Chicago in 1901. They signed a 20-year lease at the Denton building at High and Limestone and then opened their drugstore there. So that would have been the one at the McAdams building. This one here shows it at the bottom of the Shawnee at that corner there. They had locations at Southern Village at one point, but today they just have, I think, just the 3 locations. They've got one on North Limestone, one on South Limestone, and then there's one out on East Main. this year, last year we sat down with Jim Patziavos, and I'll have to turn this one up pretty loud. I think it's kind of, the sound is quieter on this one, so you'll have to let me know if it comes through okay. But we sat down with Jim, who used to come up and visit us all the time to chat in the library. We haven't seen him in a while, and I wasn't able to get a hold of him ahead of this program to let him know that we were sharing some of the clips, but we had shared the full interview last year. He talked a lot about his involvement with local sports, his fraternity, the Greek community, and just a very little bit about pharmacy and his pharmacy life. But he was a longtime owner of Northern Heights Pharmacy in on the north end of town, off of I think on McCright. But we have, let's see if I can get this to play and share my sound here.
After I finished pharmacy school, there was not a position open at Schmidt Drugs. So Mr. James Marshall was knocked on our home when we were living on North Lowry and wanted to know if I could be available to help him on his pharmacy on Center Street, South Center Street. And I had not taken the state board yet, and I told him that I need to take the state board before I practice. And he said, "Don't worry, you can pass the state board. I need help now." And I went and helped him as my first position from pharmacy school. Yes.
They didn't catch you or anything, huh?
What?
They didn't catch you for not having your
No.
credentials in order.
No,
So, when did you open your own store? How long did
1963.
And what was that store?
The name of that store, that was called Gilbert's Pharmacy.
And where was it?
What?
Where was it? What part of town? What road?
Gilbert Kirschenbaum. He was Jewish, and he had a strong Jewish clientele.
Yeah.
Who actually, a lot of those Jewish people stayed with me. They were good customers, and I enjoyed them very much.
Good. Where was it located?
Right around the corner from McCright Avenue on North Murray. The building's still there.
Did you ever change the name from Gilbert's?
Yes. I changed it when the pharmacist that I was close to from Schmidt Drugs lived across the street around the corner, and he said, "You need to change the name of the pharmacy."
Well, here's where you get in, where you do that. Okay, there's your mute. You mute it down.
Northern Heights Pharmacy.
Which that's the neighborhood name there, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Gosh,
How long was the pharmacy open?
it was open till 1996.
So that's just a little bit of his interview. So if you want to hear, he talks about a lot of different things of local history. He's a great guy. I miss it. Our regular Wednesday crew. He used to be one of our people that would stop up and visit with us and chat up in the library. So have to make sure he knows that we've done this program. I didn't know if he saw it in the paper, but I wasn't able to catch him the last few weeks to tell him about it. So another pharmacy that we have information about people connected to it, but we don't necessarily have a lot of information about the pharmacy. Whitaker's is still around. I believe they still have one location today. They had one Laganda, and I think there might be some Whitakers on here that can help this. The Laganda one I think may be closed now, and then there was the other location escapes me now, but this is a picture of their location on East Main Street that has now been, the peanut shop has expanded into that side, the side of things. But the family had donated a very large collection from Robert Whitaker several years ago. He was a veteran of World War II in the Army Air Corps, where he served as a captain. And he was the owner and operator of Whitaker's on Laganda from 1945 until he retired in 1983. So the family gave a collection of over 1,000 photographs from that document his time in the Army as a reconnaissance photographer. So it's a really interesting collection that includes aerials, aircraft photos, touristy snapshots from all around Europe and US during his training time, and postcards, portraits, family photos. He was an artist as well, so there's some self-portraits in there. He passed away in 2005, and the family donated this collection. We had, at the time, we had a graduate student from Wright State's public history program who was a World War II buff, who volunteered to go through and helped identify all of the many aircraft that were in there, and help to identify different elements of the collection. So we were grateful for that, because if I had identified all of those aircraft, it would have just said plane, big. I wouldn't have known how to describe any of them. So we like when we have people that have more of the expertise that can give more information to a collection. But Robert's father, William, had started Whitaker's Pharmacy on Laganda Avenue in 1910, and Robert eventually took over the store. His brothers ran the other pharmacies in town. Howard had the one on Limestone. Joseph ran one on East Main. That's the one, but that's not the one that's still in operation. And then George had one at Harding. So I can't remember the location of the one that's still around. So there's another pharmacy on Harding now, that's over by the Harding Road Pharmacy.
Yeah.
So we don't have anything about that one aside from knowing that it exists. Same thing with the Madison Avenue Pharmacy, the one that's over by Wittenberg. We know that's a long time one as well. But here's a few. This is a few of the pictures from Mr. Whitaker's collection that shows some of the damages from around Europe, some of his travel photos from all around Paris and London, and some of the reconnaissance, some of the photos in the air, showing planes, and some of the aerial photos. So it's a really neat collection, and we're happy to have that. We've got some tools in our artifact collections. This was a cork sizer to help fit the corks for the different bottles, so you could kind of smash it down. So this is a piece that we have, and then Patty, I don't know if you've come across these in anything. I think this stuff is in room.
I think it's in 5.
In room 5, but you're not in room 5. You're in room 6, so you probably haven't come across a lot of the bottles. But our pharmacy bottles are in there. So this one, you can see it. This is a Troop drugstore one. We have a Charles Ludlow one. This is Casper's drugstore. I think these are the directions up here for the lightning hot drops. For the back of that one, I think the front of the bottle had worn off. You couldn't see that as well. I had taken these are not. We weren't so much focusing on the names on these ones. This was I had taken for a pharmacy. It was a pharmaceutical give back day, where you can reminding people that get rid of your old medicines. And it reminded us, whenever we would come across a bottle that appeared to still have liquid in it, we would have to make sure we properly got that disposed of, talk to the fire department or whoever we need to there to take care of that. Barbara says in the chat that in the 40s, her mom would walk her to the Madison Avenue drugstore on a hot summer day to pick out an orange popsicle out of the deep cooler. They tasted better there than in later years. So yeah, I don't know. That's all I have as far. I'm sure we have other stuff that I did not come across in the collection, because there was if you go through the directories at some point, if you look under pharmacies and drugstores, there are tons of them throughout the years. So we know that there are quite a bit. Let me go back to I've suddenly forgotten how to show the rest of the people on here. Besides, there we go. Gather review. Well, everybody else has it. So I don't know if anybody has any questions or anything to add, anything we left out that you can think of, anything we should be looking for. Barbara, who's on here, is our volunteer that does most of our scanning. So she hit most of the photos got done when she did our commercial boxes, where we just all of our any local businesses we had were included in those boxes.
There used to be a pharmacy on the corner of Western and Main Street. I think it was called Western Pharmacy that we frequented a lot.
And I know and then we've got some of the big chain ones here too, CVS and
Right here. After Bob wants to talk, if he doesn't fall off the chair.
Oh yeah, we can hear you. We hear you, Bob.
Okay, the oldest pharmacy that I can recall is, well, it was later called Standard Pharmacy, but originally it was Bradhurst at the corner of Race and Main. And then later on, he took in a partner by the name of Tobin, Earl Tobin, and they were there until, oh gosh, in the late 80s. And it's an old West End pharmacy. It was called Bradhurst at one time, and then later Standard Pharmacy. And just an added thing, my dad told me once he bought his first cigar from Bradhurst, Vic Bradhurst, at age 14, and due to his work and later on, he couldn't. They wouldn't let him smoke, but he decided he'd just chew the cigars. So he chewed them until he was 99.
Oh my goodness.
He did smoke some though. He did smoke. But he chewed them a lot.
I'm looking back at I had okay, so the one that was back before that, there was an old interior photo. That was Ludlow's Pharmacy. That was the interior of that. And one that I forgot to include in the slideshow here was Scarrett's on Selma. That's one that we got more recently donated a picture of. I think that the building is no longer standing, but we had an interior of that from like the 50s or 60s. So a lot of our pharmacy photos are a lot earlier. And then we have a handful from later years. But it's really a topic that we could probably find a lot of different information about who worked there, who ran them, that kind of stuff. We haven't gotten to do all of the research yet to figure all of them out. But the next topic that we're going to be talking about is next month on Wednesday, May 20th, which is coming up on our anniversary of the Heritage Center's opening in this building here. Which opened on March 31st, 2001. Our special guest speaker is architect Steve Sharp, who was the architect for the project, who's going to talk about some of the work that he did, the challenges of this building that we are very much aware of, the challenges of this building. But we'll talk about that on our anniversary. We've got some behind the scenes slides of showing the building coming together and before and after of all of that. So that will be on March 20th at 7. And then other topics we're working on coming up is we're going to do something about local nursery and florist industry, probably in May for May flowers. But we haven't nailed that one down yet. But if you guys have any other ideas for things that you'd like to see, I'm always happy to hear what people want, see if we have the stuff in our collections to support it, but also we can have guest speakers to talk about stuff as well. So
Natalie, I'd like to see something on girl and boy scouting.
oh yeah, that's one we could do. Ooh, and we've got uniforms and all sorts of fun stuff we could do with that too. So that's a good idea.
Camping and
Yeah. All right. I will write that down. We can work on that one, start pulling stuff together. And I know you've donated a lot of stuff, Barbara, that we can use. And you too, Patty, actually. So that we can do with that, and we can see we've got different stuff from Boy Scouts as well. So that would be a good topic. And maybe we can get some local Boy and Girl Scouts to come to that one too. So current, I have a daughter who I might force to drag into that one. So speaking of Girl Scouts, if anyone wants cookies, I have them all over my living room right now, and we would be happy to bring anybody cookies if they wanted them. But that's all we have for tonight. Thank you guys for joining. And we'll look forward to sharing more local history with you. I know that we actually have an in-person, wanted to mention this too, we have an in-person program coming up in on March 21st, I believe it is. So it would be the day after our virtual program. We'll have an in-person program where we're showing, we're screening a Revolutionary War era film made by Kent Masterson Brown, who's actually one of our speakers for our Civil War Symposium that is this coming weekend on March 2nd. That is already sold out. So if you haven't gotten your tickets for the Civil War Symposium, I'm sorry, you'll have to join us next year instead. But that's what we've got coming up in March. So thank you guys for coming tonight, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.